Our story begins 18 years ago in Western Australia. A man here made an urgent call which gets forwarded to a doctor named Martins over in Italy. He told her something came out of her tank and that he'd already called 6 times. Dr. Martins is a research microbiologist who sometimes consults for NASA on epidemiological surveillance. The man on the phone told her if she's NASA, then this is her tank. And just like that, the call cut off. 27 hours later, Dr. Martins arrived at the site. Waiting for her were Major Robert from the DTRA and his partner, Lieutenant Colonel Trini. Back in 1979, a space station fell into the Indian Ocean. But when it broke apart in the atmosphere, one of the oxygen tanks was recovered near this area. And it wasn't empty. It had been sent into space carrying a microbial organism, a parasitic fungus capable of adapting from one species to another. The goal was to develop an antifungal medication for astronauts. But the problem is, what went into that tank is not what came out. And now, everyone in this area is dying. Or dead. They found the tank. Martins told everyone to stay behind her. A local resident had been charging people money just to come look at the thing. He'd even tried cleaning it with potatoes and dish soap. But the polysaccharide in the potato and the sodium palmitate in the soap created one hell of a pro-growth environment. Martins spotted a large, fast-moving heterotrophic fungus. It latched itself right onto her shoes. And that's when they found the body of a dead man. His body had burst open. They looked around and saw more dead bodies scattered across the rooftops, all in the same condition. Martins explained that the fungus told them to climb. That's exactly how an insect pathogenic fungus reproduces. It commands its host to climb and wait for the fungus to overfill its body cavity, burst open, and spread. Martins collected a sample of the fungus. They were going to burn this entire place to the ground. But the fungus from Martins' shoes had already entered her body. As they started to leave, Martins began feeling strange. She started panting heavily. The moment Robert asked if she was okay, Martins threw up a green liquid. The fungus had gotten inside her body and started taking control of her brain. Martins jumped into a car and tried to flee. Robert saved Trini by shoving her out of the car's path. Martins and Trini fought over the gun. Martins got hold of it, and then she turned it on herself. After that, the military took the fungus, rigged the place with explosives, and blew it all to the ground. The fungus was brought to the United States. It was placed securely inside a test tube, locked away in an underground storage vault beneath a decommissioned facility in Kansas. In the 18 years since, the government sealed the vault and rented out the ground-level section to a self-storage company. A night guard named Teacake was telling his manager Griffin that he couldn't help him out. He said it was messed up for him because of his personal situation. Griffin told him he had new help tonight. A girl who'd be on walk and lock check until midnight. And something was beeping down there, so he needed Teacake to fix it. That new employee was a young woman named Naomi. Just then, an elderly woman, Mrs. Rooney, walked in. She said she needed to get into her storage unit because it was her anniversary. Mrs. Rooney took the elevator down to sub-level 1. Inside her storage unit, buried among piles of belongings, she had a gun. She wished her late husband's photo a happy anniversary. She was ready to end it all. But then she figured she'd take a little nap first. Meanwhile, upstairs, Teacake kept hearing a strange dinging sound. He checked the CCTV, spotted Naomi, and told her about it. But when Naomi came over to check, she couldn't hear a thing. Teacake introduced himself to Naomi. She told him he was named after a famous character from a book. But he said that wasn't it. Right then, Naomi got a call from a man. She didn't want to talk to him. And that's when they both heard the dinging sound. On the other side of things, Robert's phone rang. A woman on the line said she was calling about a 1978 Plymouth Duster for sale. Robert's wife asked who it was. He lied to her. Back at the facility, Naomi and Teacake figured out the dinging was coming from behind a wall. Now, Teacake wanted to break through that wall and see what was on the other side. But he wasn't going to do it. Naomi said they could just hang the picture back up and nobody would know the difference. Then Naomi got another call. It was her baby's father. Naomi started trying to convince Teacake to break through the wall. But he couldn't risk it, because losing this job would violate his parole conditions. Naomi had already noticed his tattoos and put the pieces together. She kept pushing until she finally talked him into it. On his end, Robert pulled a phone out of a locked case and made a call. He learned they were getting a temperature breach alert from that decommissioned facility in Kansas. Robert said he'd wondered about that, given the weather changes. He'd even written a memo back in 2007 on that very subject. The call had come to him hours late because they had to figure out who to even contact. Robert told them he could be there in 90 minutes. He needed a plane ready and a car waiting on the other end. He didn't have any equipment, so he needed everything on the list. But the military officer on the line said she couldn't arrange all of that without multiple authorizations. Robert told her to get Gordon Gray to clear her. He asked for her name. She said to just give her a fake one, something to call her by. So Robert called her Abigail. Robert told her to listen carefully. All the hard work and sacrifices she'd made, she did it because she wanted to do what was right for her country. And this is what it was all for. It's worse than she could possibly imagine. Abigail agreed to make it happen. Naomi and Teacake broke through the wall and crawled inside. In there, an NTC thermistor breach alert was blinking. Naomi recognized it as a circuit that's reactive to temperature. She found all this machinery pretty cool. Teacake told her it used to be military storage back in the day. They cleaned it out and sold it a long time ago. Naomi noticed that all the sensors belonged to a lab down on sublevel 4. She wanted to go down and check it out. There was a tube ladder leading all the way down. For Naomi, going down there was the most fun she'd had in years. But Teacake stopped her. He said first she asked him to punch a hole in the wall, and he did it. But now she was telling him to crawl down a tube ladder a couple hundred feet into the blocked-off section of an abandoned government facility. He needed a minute to think about it. Teacake had been in this exact spot before. Listening to other people and going along with their ideas is exactly what got him into trouble in the first place. And he wasn't about to let that happen again. But for now, Teacake was going down there with Naomi. Just then, outside in the parking lot, a man named Mike pulled up in his car. He had a gun with him. Down below, Naomi and Teacake discovered that an alarm was going off. As they explored the place, Naomi asked Teacake his real name. It was Travis. They also found 2 hazard suits hanging on the wall. They spotted another tube ladder leading even further down. This one went almost 400 to 500 feet deep. Back outside, Mike tried calling Naomi again. On her voicemail, he said he had a problem. The problem was in his trunk, and he couldn't go home. Right then, he heard something moving inside the trunk. Mike walked up to the trunk and said, "No, you're dead." But when he opened it, his cat was alive. Only now it was infected with the fungus. The cat bolted out, climbed up a pole, and killed itself. Its body burst open. The fungus particles scattered through the air, landing on a few nearby deer and getting inside Mike. Down in the underground facility, Teacake spotted a sign that read DTRA access only. But neither of them even knew what DTR meant. They went inside and found a swarm of fungus-infected rats, all fused together in a tangled mass. One of the rats tried to attack Teacake. Then Naomi looked past a doorway and saw massive amounts of fungus covering everything. The whole place was freezing cold, but that door was cold to the touch. After seeing all of that, the two of them decided it was time to get out of there. But up above, the fungus had already taken hold of Mike's brain. It was pushing him to find more people. Mike grabbed his gun and headed inside to look for Naomi. Right behind him, an infected deer followed its way in too. Meanwhile, Robert had already boarded his plane. Robert called Abigail and told her there was going to be a welcoming committee on the other end. He asked if she'd called Gordon Gray. But then he found out Gordon Gray was dead. And now everything was being handled by his old colleague Jerebek. Jerebek made it clear he didn't share Robert and Gordon's obsession over this. He believed the virus had been safely contained for 20 years. But Robert pushed back. He said sure, unless Gordon died and the climate changed. Jerebek told him he wasn't going to get sucked into this conversation. He said Robert was on that airplane solely as a gesture of respect to the old man. All he wanted was a threat assessment and a sober report. Then quietly, Robert got a secret call from Abigail on the side. He told her that Jerebek and all the people in power now don't understand the threat of that fungus, and they would stop them from doing what needs to be done. Robert asked Abigail to make some calls for him since the airplane Wi-Fi wouldn't be secure enough. He wanted her to call Trini and tell her Margot is under the weather. Back at the facility, Naomi searched the internet for DTR, and right then a deer was watching them. They both watched that deer walk right into an elevator before their very eyes. Naomi couldn't believe it. She asked how something like that even happens. Then we were shown how it all unfolded. Years ago, the virus escaped from that test tube and made its way to the door. Hours ago, it broke through and infected a cockroach. That cockroach traveled through the entire underground facility and crawled out through a drain just minutes before. From there, the fungus made its way to the cat sitting in Mike's car. Teacake told them they needed to call the DTR. The two of them ran for the upper levels. But the deer had followed them up. It charged toward them and exploded. By sheer luck, the fungus didn't land on either of them. And that's when infected Mike showed up. He looked right at them and said, "Open your mouth." He wanted to throw up in it. They saw the gun in Mike's hand and bolted. The sound of the gunshot woke up Mrs. Rooney, who'd been asleep in her storage unit. Naomi and Teacake ducked into a storage unit to hide from Mike. Mike walked right past them, but then Teacake made a noise inside the unit. Mike turned back, but the two of them slammed the door shut just in time. Right away, they called the DTR. On the other side, Robert's plane had landed. Trini was already there waiting for him. They headed out to grab the most important gear from the list. Right then, Abigail called Robert and told him they were getting a civilian phone call coming from inside the facility. Robert got on the line with Naomi. He asked her if anyone had come into direct physical contact with the fungus. Naomi told him one person and a deer, which blew up. Robert told Naomi she had called the right person. He said not to call anyone else. He'd be there in 40 minutes. But right about that time, Griffin showed up at the storage facility with his biker gang. They were there to load up smuggled televisions from storage. They walked in to find the exploded deer splattered across the hallway. Griffin got on the mic and asked Teacake what he did to his lobby. Griffin needed those TVs loaded in 20 minutes. On the other side, Trini and Robert broke into a house. Inside, there was a suitcase with a device in it. As the two of them were about to leave, a man walked in holding a gun. It was Trini's son. Trini told him they were just grabbing something. Robert asked Trini if she hadn't thought about keeping something like this here. Trini said they don't know how to activate it. From here on out, Robert would be going alone. Back at the facility, Teacake wanted to go warn Griffin and the others. But Naomi told him no. The guy on the phone said he'd be there in 20 minutes. Teacake wasn't convinced. He said they wouldn't be able to do anything. If she'd talked to some general and he said half a dozen Sikorskis were flying in, then sure, they could sit tight. But not now. He said his job was pretty terrible, but it was still his job. This place hired him right out of prison. So he would very much like to just once not screw something up. Naomi told him he had her back earlier, so now she'd have his. But on the other side, Mike had already reached the bikers loading the TVs. Naomi and Teacake ran in screaming at everyone to get out of there. But Mike threw up on 3 of the bikers. He locked them inside a storage unit and started chasing Naomi and Teacake. That's when Mrs. Rooney stepped out and shot him. Mike's body burst open. Abigail called Robert and told him that Naomi mentioned there were others inside the facility. Robert said there was a storm on the way. If that fungus made contact with water, it would spread like wildfire. They needed an aerial view, satellite reconnaissance. Abigail told him she had a friend at ADF East. Robert said to get eyes overhead as soon as possible. Anyone contaminated would read hot, so they needed to look for abnormal heat signatures. Back inside, Teacake sent Mrs. Rooney out of the building to safety. The TV buyer took off in his vehicle and got out of there. But inside the facility, Griffin turned his gun on Teacake. Teacake warned them all to stay away from the fungus. Right then, Griffin heard his biker buddies calling out from inside a locked storage unit. Griffin told Teacake to open the unit. He accidentally shot Teacake in the arm. The bullet grazed him and went straight through. Teacake had no choice but to walk over and open the door. But instead of opening it, he locked it from the outside. That's when Naomi jumped in and hit them with a fire extinguisher. Naomi and Teacake bolted through the smoke. The two of them made it out of the facility. And right at that moment, Robert arrived. He handed them both guns and told them they were a green light team now. He gave them hazmat suits and said they had to go back downstairs to place the device. Teacake stopped him. He said Robert brought a nuke and was going to kill everybody in eastern Kansas. Robert told him he'd seen what the fungus can do. And they weren't killing anyone. The detonation would be hundreds of feet underground. There would be no atmospheric fallout and the problem would be solved. Naomi backed Robert up on this. Robert showed them how to start the device and told them that once it was activated, they'd have 9 to 16 minutes to get out and to get a mile away from there. Robert would stay up top to kill any infected organism that tried to escape the area. Inside, Griffin opened the storage unit door and the infected riders stumbled out. Another rider fell right into the fungus. Griffin pulled his gun on the infected riders. They started talking about getting out of there. Teacake and Naomi suited up in their hazmats and headed back inside. Outside, Robert was puncturing the tires on every vehicle when Abigail called to warn him about an incoming infected. Robert shot the rider down. But Robert's back had been injured years ago during that incident in Australia. He was in bad shape. Robert collapsed to the ground. His back gave out and he couldn't get up. Inside, Griffin followed the riders at gunpoint. Then from above, Robert fired shots into all the bikes so nobody could escape. Deep underground, Naomi and Teacake got the nuke into position near the lab. But then they realized Robert had already activated it. They only had 6 minutes left to get out. And to make it worse, the timer duration was unstable. It might go early, it might go late. Up above, the fungus was creeping toward Robert. The infected rider and Griffin were coming too. Robert shot the rider. Griffin ducked behind cover. Griffin got up and grabbed a gun. But right then, the infected rider stood up in front of him with half his face gone. Griffin shot him down. Griffin rushed over to Robert and started grabbing his car keys. But that's when Trini showed up. Robert told Trini it was okay to go ahead. Trini raised her weapon and shot Griffin dead. Naomi and Teacake ran into an infected rider on their way up. Naomi shot her down. The nuke's timer became unstable. Teacake and Trini lifted Robert and loaded him into the car. They all jumped in and sped away from the facility. Just as they got some distance, the nuke went off. The underground facility and the entire surrounding area erupted from below. Robert and the others barely made it out of there, all in one piece. Soon enough, the news picked up the story. Jerebek was being questioned about the whole thing. Robert ended up in the hospital. From his bed, he watched the news covering his heroic actions. It was Abigail who had leaked everything to the media. She came to visit Robert and finally told him her real name. It was Ishani. On the other side of town, Teacake was spending time at the park with Naomi and her daughter. He told Naomi the story behind his nickname. And with that, friends, this story comes to an end. Let us know in the comments how you liked this explanation. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.